Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Lucy Fevina Siregar. So today I'm gonna telling you about the speech community and intersecting communities. First of all, what is speech communities? Speech communities is a group of people who speak who speak the same language and share the same words and grammar rules. According to Taylor, defines speech communities as people categories in a social organization speaking the same language. The second one is intersecting communities. Intersecting communities are communities which have things in common. Individuals find it advantageous to shift their identities freely. Is less useful than it might be, so returning to the concept of a group who are united individuals from one group to another. Each person speaks their own typical way according to its place of origin or specific speech community. Rosen claims that cities cannot be thought of as linguistic pathways ghetto because, first, language and dialect have no simple geographical distribution, and second, because interaction between them blurs whatever boundaries might be drawn. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Renita Burplawi and my ID number is 190705085. So I want to explain about speech community part C. It's about networks and repertoires. And then about language change, part A, creoles and pidgins, and part B, some changes in progress. Networks and repertoires. Networks and repertoires is how that a person can be part of various speech communities. Some that intersect and some that do not. Certain individuals may be in one or more groups, but not others. To be involved in a dance works, if the people you know and interact with also know and interact with one another, if they do not, the network is a loose one. You are also said to be involved in a multiplex network if the people within it are tied together in more than one way, not just through work but also through other social activities. People who go to school together, marry each other's siblings, and work and play together, participate in these multiplex networks. The linguistic repertoires of one individual speaker is determined by the language varieties that he or she knows and uses. Within his or her speech community, a speaker's verbal repertoire defines his or her individual's communicative competence. Communicative competence is the ability to not only construct grammatically correct sentences but also to apply language correctly and appropriately with respect to different social speech situations. A competent speaker is able to vary his or her language by applying different registers and styles. There are two types of networks. First is open network. Networks which provide open access to its users. The information is often new and important. And then second is closed networks. It is mostly strong ties. Information that flows in those networks tend to be redundant and inefficient. Next, creoles and pidgins. Some specialized languages were developed to keep the outsider at bay. In other circumstances, languages have been deliberately created to facilitate communications with outsiders. This happens when people speaking two different languages have to work together, usually in some form of trade relations or administrative routines. In such situations, two so-called pigeons arise. Sometimes as a result of relatively permanent settlements and the intermixture of two speech communities, Pidgin becomes the first language of later generations, ultimately displacing both the original language. First language arising in this way from artificially created pigeons is called creoles. Creoles differ from pigeons in that as first language, they are subject to the natural processes of change like any other language. And despite the deliberately simplified form of the original pigeons, creoles develop their own complexities in the course of generations. Next, some changes in progress. Every language is changed over the times, but some of these changes are faster than others, and some are more noticeable. The lexicon is the vocabulary of a language. What words are in a language, new words enter. English all the times as new technology and concepts emerge. And dictionary editors like to publish lists of the new words they're added. That's all about my explanation. Thank you so much.
Mechanism of change. Speaker invent sometimes spontaneously but more often by mimicking other society speakers. If their invention are embraced by others and spread throughout their local community and beyond language occur three types of speaker. The young fluent speaker have a native command of the ancestral language but show subtle deviation from the norms of older speakers. Passive bilinguals are able to understand the ancestral language but are unable to produce it themselves. Semi-speakers continue using the ancestral language in imperfect way. These variables distribution appear to be influenced by socio-economic class, age, and gender, and these effects appear to operate across lengthy period of time. Labov goes on to say that in his research in Philadelphia revealed that the main determinant of stable social-linguistic variable is social class. The higher a speaker places on the social scale, the lower the frequency of non-standard forms. Despite the expansion and homogenization of the mass media, linguistic change is proceeding at a rapid rate so that the dialect of Boston, New York, Chicago, Birmingham, and Los Angeles are more different than they were a century ago. Labov says, as a result, the problem is one of detecting change and then attempting to account for them, what set in motion, how they spread, and how they are maintained. Change, which people are aware of, have been described as change from above. These are changes where people are conscious of their social significance as desirable or prestige feature of speech. People evaluate the speech of those who use such features highly. So, in social dialect survey undertaken by Labov, even New Yorkers who didn't use post-vocalic R in conversation recognize it as a prestigious feature in the speech of those who did use it and evaluated their speech positively. A second meaning of change from above refers to the source of the change. In this sense, above refers to the fact that future is generally spreading downwards through the social groups in speech community. So it appears that post-vocalic R appeared first in the speech of upper middle class in New York, and then gradually filtered down through the different social classes until it reaches the speech of the lowest social class in the community. Following a series of known changes in progress, LeBeau proposes that there are two types of change: change from below, which occurs without conscious, and change from above, which occurs with conscious awareness. In retrospect, LeBeau states that using the terms change from inside for change from below and change from without for change from above would have been more evident for others. Change from below is methodical and unconscious, whereas change from above is intermittent, deliberate, and fraught with prestige difficulties. Language debt. When community is the last in the world to use a language, it is referred to as linguistic debt. Language debt is a process in which a speech community linguistic competency in their language variety declines, eventually leaving the variety with no native or fluent speaker. Any language form, including dialect, can succumb to language debt. Glottopegy, or the absorption or replacement of a minor language by a major language, is the death of a language due to natural or political factor. A language is frequently pronounced dead before the last native speaker has passed away. When only a few elderly speakers of a language survive and they no longer communicate in that language, the language is effectively dead. The extinction of Cornish in England is an example of language death, as well as shift to English. Endemism of Norwegian as an immigrant language in the USA exemplifies shift without death, as Norwegian is of course still spoken in its original setting in Norway. Based on Campbell and Mansell, there are four types of language death. 1. Gradual death involves gradual replacement of one language by another. An example is the replacement of Gaelic by English in part of Scotland. 2. Sudden death is rapid extinction of a language without an intervening part of bilingualism. The less speaker then is monolingual in the dying language, as with Tasmanian. 3. Radical death is when a community stops speaking their language out of self-defense. For example, after the massacre of thousands of Indians in El Salvador in 1932, the speaker of Cacaopera and Lancia stopped speaking their language as not to be identified as Indians. 4. Bottom to top death is when a language cases to be used as a medium of conversation but may survive in special use like a region or folk songs. For example, Zeltal in Mexico has only a few older speakers in scattered villages but survive in registered prayer.